The night Keanu found them, the night was quiet, yet inside Keanu Reeves there was a weight he could not shake. He had finished a late dinner with a few close friends in downtown Los Angeles, but instead of driving home directly, he asked his driver to take the long route. He liked to watch the city lights, to see the life of strangers passing by. In those small glimpses, he often found inspiration and peace. As the car moved slowly past a row of dimly lit shops, Keanu asked the driver to pull over near a closed grocery store. He noticed something unusual. Tucked at the far corner of the empty lot was an old, rusted sedan. The windows were fogged, and inside he saw faint movement. Curiosity mixed with concern. Most people would have ignored it. But Keanu was not most people. "Wait here," he said softly to the driver, stepping out into the cool night air. He walked slowly toward the car, careful not to alarm whoever was inside. As he drew closer, he saw through the glass. A woman sat in the driver's seat, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, while a boy no older than 10 curled up in the back, clutching a worn blanket. The boy's face was half hidden in the shadows, but Keanu could see the marks of tiredness and hunger. Keanu gently tapped on the window. The woman startled, sitting up quickly. Her hands moved protectively toward her son. "It's okay," Keanu said softly, keeping his voice low and calm. "I didn't mean to scare you." The woman cracked the window just enough to speak. Her voice was sharp, but there was fear beneath it. "What do you want?" Keanu smiled faintly, though there was sadness in his eyes. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay. It's late. It's not safe out here." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she sighed, her shoulders sinking. "We're fine," she whispered. "Just trying to rest." The boy stirred and sat up, rubbing his eyes. He looked at Keanu with curiosity, but also with that guarded caution children develop when they've seen too much of the world's hardness too soon. "Hi there," Keanu said gently, waving a little. "I'm Keanu. What's your name?" The boy hesitated, then whispered, "Alex." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Look, sir, we don't need trouble. We'll be gone by morning." Keanu studied them for a moment. The car was old, the backseat filled with bags of clothes and fast food wrappers. It was clear they weren't just passing through. They were living there. "Have you eaten tonight?" Keanu asked softly. The woman bit her lip but didn't answer. Her silence was answer enough. Without another word, Keanu stepped back, pulled out his phone, and called his driver to bring the takeout boxes they hadn't finished earlier. Within minutes, he returned with bags of food. He placed them carefully on the hood of the car. "There's no condition," Keanu said. "Just food, please." The woman stared at him, suspicion in her tired eyes. But the boy tugged at her sleeve, whispering, "Mom, I'm hungry." Slowly, reluctantly, she unlocked the door and reached for the bags. "Thank you," she murmured, almost too quietly to hear. Keanu didn't press further. He simply nodded, stepping back to give them space. As they began to eat, he leaned against the car next to theirs, watching the night sky. But inside, something was stirring. The hook had caught them, him most of all. He thought he was just taking the long road home, but what he had stumbled upon was something else. And he could not just walk away. The weight of silence, the silence between them, was heavy, broken only by the crinkle of wrappers and the boy's soft chewing. Keanu remained still, letting them finish without pressure. Only when the boy leaned back, satisfied, did Keanu speak again. "I know I'm a stranger," he said quietly, "but no one should have to sleep in a car, not in this city. Not anywhere." The woman lowered her gaze, her hands tightening around the steering wheel. "We don't have a choice," she whispered. "Shelters are full, the rent is impossible. I'm working 2 jobs, but it's never enough. This car is all we have left." Keanu felt the words sink deep inside him. He knew hardship, he knew loss. But hearing her voice shake, watching her fight to hold back tears, it brought him back to the quiet nights he once spent alone, wrestling with grief and emptiness. He turned his eyes to the boy, Alex, so young yet already carrying the weight of struggle. "Alex," Keanu said softly, "do you go to school?" The boy looked at his mom before answering. "Sometimes, when we can," Keanu nodded slowly. He didn't want to pry too deeply, not yet. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a small notebook he always carried. He tore a page, scribbled a number. "This is my number," he said, sliding the paper through the cracked window. "If you need help, call me." The woman stared at the paper, stunned. "Why?" she asked, suspicion sharp again. Keanu looked at her with the quiet honesty he carried everywhere. "Because I can help," he said simply, "and because I want to." She didn't take the paper, not yet, but she didn't throw it away either. Conflict rising, Keanu walked back to his car that night, but his mind stayed with them. Even as the driver asked, "Home, sir?" he hesitated. "Not yet," Keanu replied. "Let's circle back." They drove slowly around the block, and when they returned, he saw the woman still sitting in the car, staring out the windshield, lost in thought. The boy had fallen asleep again, curled against the seat. The sight tightened something in Keanu's chest. He knew if he just left, they would still be there tomorrow. And the day after, struggling, suffering in silence. But what if he could change that? Still, he also knew the risk. People might say he was interfering. Some would call it a publicity stunt. Others would say he was naive, that he couldn't save everyone. Yet Keanu wasn't thinking about everyone. He was thinking about Alex, a boy trying to sleep in the backseat of a broken car. A decision forming, he went home late that night, but sleep never came. He kept replaying the woman's face, the boy's small voice. By dawn, he had made a decision. Keanu had faced loss before. He had felt the emptiness of nights when the world seemed unfair. But he also knew what kindness could mean when you were at your lowest. And so he decided this was not the end of their story. It was the beginning. A stranger's kindness. The next morning, Keanu sat at his kitchen table, a cup of coffee untouched beside him. Outside, the sun rose slowly, but his thoughts were still on the boy and his mother. He couldn't shake the image of Alex sleeping in the backseat, wrapped in a thin blanket as the night pressed in around him. He thought about calling right away, but he knew trust couldn't be forced. So instead, he decided to go back to that parking lot, hoping they would still be there. When he arrived, the car was gone. For a moment, his heart sank. Maybe they had left. Maybe the woman had been too frightened to stay in the same spot. But as he turned to leave, he saw the old sedan parked a few blocks down near a laundromat. He walked toward it slowly, careful again not to startle them. The boy was awake this time, sitting on the curb with a small toy car in his hand. He looked up and his eyes widened in recognition. "You came back," Alex whispered. Keanu smiled softly. "I told you I would." The boy's mother stepped out of the laundromat with a small bag of clothes. When she saw Keanu, she froze. Her first instinct was to shield Alex, but then she noticed something different in her son's face, something close to hope. "Why are you here again?" she asked carefully. Keanu hesitated, choosing his words with care. "Because I can't stop thinking about you and your boy. You shouldn't have to live like this." "Let me help." The woman frowned, her pride and fear battling inside her. "People say things like that," she said bitterly. "They promise to help, then they disappear." Keanu's voice was quiet but firm. "I'm not going to disappear." A fragile beginning for the first time, she looked at him closely, searching for dishonesty in his eyes. But what she saw was sincerity. Not pity, not charity, just genuine care. Finally, she sighed and said, "My name is Maria." "It's good to meet you, Maria," Keanu replied. The conversation could have ended there, but Alex tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "can we trust him?" Maria looked down at her son, then back at Keanu. "I don't know," she admitted honestly. Keanu crouched down so he was at Alex's eye level. "Trust is something that grows," he said softly. "I don't expect you to give it to me today, but maybe we can start small. How about breakfast?" Alex's eyes lit up, but he quickly tried to hide it, not wanting to upset his mother. Maria hesitated, then nodded. "Breakfast, that's all." Breakfast and truths, they sat together at a small diner nearby. The smell of pancakes and fresh coffee filled the air, and for the first time in days, Alex ate until he was full. Maria sat across from him, eating slowly, almost guiltily, as though she didn't believe she deserved this moment. Keanu let them eat in silence for a while before he asked, "How long have you been in the car?" Maria lowered her fork. "Almost 6 months," she said quietly. "After I lost my apartment, after everything." She explained how she had been working as a waitress, but when the restaurant closed, she fell behind on rent. One thing led to another, and soon she had no home. Shelters were full, family was far away, and pride kept her from asking for help. "People look at you differently when you tell them you're homeless," she said bitterly. "They think you're lazy. They think you did something wrong, but I work harder now than I ever did." Keanu listened, his heart heavy. He didn't interrupt. He just let her speak because sometimes being heard is the first step to healing. Alex, between bites, added softly, "Sometimes I dream we have a house again, with a bed, with a door we can lock. I don't tell Mom because I don't want her to be sad." Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. Keanu reached across the table, his hand resting gently on the edge. "Alex," he said softly, "dreams can come true. Sometimes they just need a little help." A quiet promise after breakfast, Keanu walked them back to their car. Maria thanked him quietly, but her voice was still guarded. "You don't have to do this," she said. "You don't even know us." Keanu looked at her with quiet strength. "I know enough. I know no child should have to live like this. I know no mother should have to choose between food and safety." She shook her head. Why are you really doing this? Keanu paused, then answered honestly. Because once when I was broken, someone showed me kindness, and it saved me. Maybe now it's my turn to pass it on. For a moment, Maria couldn't speak. She looked away, trying to hide the tears threatening to spill. The turning point later that day, Keanu called a friend who ran a small charity organization. He explained the situation, asked if there were any immediate solutions. Within hours, arrangements were made for a safe temporary shelter. When he returned to Maria and Alex to tell them, Maria's face hardened again. You did this without asking me? She demanded. Keanu stayed calm. I'm not forcing anything, he said gently. It's your choice, always, but there's a place waiting for you if you want it. Food, showers, a bed, no conditions. Just safety. Maria's chest rose and fell as she fought with herself. She wanted to believe him, but years of disappointment and broken promises had built walls around her. Alex tugged at her sleeve. Mom, can we try? Maria looked down at her son, then back at Keanu. Her voice cracked. If this is a trick, if this is just for your image. It's not, Keanu interrupted softly. I promise you it's not. Finally, Maria nodded. We'll try. A step toward hope that evening, Keanu personally drove them to the shelter. As they walked in, Alex's eyes widened at the sight of rows of clean beds, warm lighting, and volunteers offering hot meals. For the first time in a long time, Maria's shoulders lowered. She still held her son close, still wary, but there was a flicker of relief in her eyes. Keanu stayed back, watching them settle in. He didn't want to overwhelm them, didn't want to make them feel like they owed him. But inside, he felt something shift. This wasn't just about one night of food. This was about giving them back the dignity they deserved. As he left the shelter, Keanu whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." The walls of doubt the first night in the shelter should have been peaceful, but for Maria, sleep did not come easily. She lay awake on the narrow bed, listening to the sound of footsteps in the hallway, the soft breathing of Alex beside her, the quiet hum of the heater. For 6 months she had slept in the car, always alert, always afraid. Now, surrounded by walls and strangers, she felt both safer and more exposed. The kindness of one man had brought her here, yet the fear of betrayal still clung tightly to her heart. What if this was temporary? What if tomorrow they were sent back to the streets? She turned and looked at Alex, who was smiling faintly in his sleep. His small body finally stretched out without the awkwardness of a car seat. The sight softened her fears, but it did not erase them. Keanu's silent worries across the city, Keanu also found himself restless. He had helped many people quietly over the years, but this felt different. This wasn't a donation or a passing gesture, this was personal. He thought of Maria's suspicion, her sharp tone when she said, "If this is for your image." He didn't blame her. The world had probably promised her help many times, only to abandon her when it mattered most. Keanu poured himself a glass of water and whispered, "How do I prove I'm real to them?" He knew the answer was not in words, but in actions. A fragile bond. The next morning, Keanu visited the shelter. Maria sat at a table with Alex eating breakfast. When she saw him, her body tensed. "You're here again," she said, her voice cautious. "I wanted to check in," Keanu replied gently. "How was your first night?" Maria hesitated. "Different," she admitted. "Quiet, strange. I kept thinking someone would tell us to leave." "No one will," Keanu said firmly. "This place is yours as long as you need it." Alex beamed up at him. "I like it here," he said. "They gave me cereal, and I got to brush my teeth in a real bathroom." Maria lowered her gaze, embarrassed at her son's excitement over something so small. But Keanu smiled warmly. "Those things matter, Alex. They matter more than people realize." The test of trust later that day, Keanu met privately with the shelter director. He offered to cover Maria's costs quietly to ensure she and Alex would not be turned away if funding ran low. But the director warned him gently, "Money isn't always the hardest part. Trust is. She'll need time to believe stability is real again." Keanu nodded. He understood. When he left the office, he saw Maria standing by the window, arms crossed. "What are you telling them about us?" she asked, suspicion flashing in her eyes. Keanu stopped in his tracks. "Nothing personal," he said softly. "Just that I want to help keep you safe." Her jaw tightened. "People don't do things for free. What do you expect from us?" The words cut him, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he met her gaze with quiet honesty. "Nothing. You don't owe me anything. Not now, not ever." Maria studied him for a long moment. Part of her wanted to believe him. Another part screamed not to. Alex's voice that night, as Maria tucked Alex into bed, he whispered, "Mom, I think he's good." Maria brushed his hair back gently. "Maybe," she said softly. You always say people leave, Alex continued, his voice sleepy but firm. But he came back twice, and he brought us here. Maybe he's different. Maria's throat tightened. She wanted to protect her son, to keep him from disappointment. But she also couldn't ignore the small spark of hope in his eyes. For the first time in months, she whispered, maybe you're right. Shadows of the past the next few days brought small changes. Alex smiled more, laughed more, even played with other children in the shelter. Maria, however, still held back. She spoke little, watched everyone carefully, and often sat alone. Keanu visited often but never pushed. He brought books for Alex, small snacks, sometimes just sat quietly and listened. Then one afternoon, as they shared lunch, Maria finally spoke of her past. I wasn't always like this, she said quietly, her voice trembling. I had a home, a job, a life. I thought I was strong enough to handle anything. But then Alex's father, he left, and I was alone. The bills piled up. I worked every shift I could, but it wasn't enough, and once you fall behind, the world doesn't forgive you. She shook her head bitterly. You don't get second chances. People close their doors, they stop answering calls, they stop looking at you like you matter. Keanu listened, his heart heavy. He wanted to tell her she did matter, that her story wasn't over. But he stayed quiet, knowing she needed to pour out the pain she had carried alone for too long. The first crack of light later, as they walked outside, Alex tugged at Keanu's hand. Will you come back tomorrow? He asked. Keanu smiled. If you want me to, yes, Alex nodded firmly. Then come, because when you're here, Mom doesn't look so sad. Maria froze at her son's words. She turned away, wiping her eyes quickly. Keanu felt the weight of that moment. Trust was fragile, but here it was, a crack of light breaking through the walls she had built. Storm before calm, but the path forward was not simple. One evening, Keanu arrived at the shelter only to find Maria outside, her face pale with anger. I heard people whispering, she snapped. They said some actor is paying for us, that you're doing this for attention. Is that true? Keanu's chest tightened. Maria, listen to me. I never wanted anyone to talk. I asked them to keep it private. But they're talking anyway, she said bitterly. And now everyone's looking at us like we're some charity case. I won't let Alex grow up thinking we survived because of someone else's pity. Her words shook the fragile trust they had built. Keanu saw the fear behind her anger, the desperate need to hold on to dignity. Maria, he said quietly, this isn't pity, it's respect. You've done everything to keep Alex safe. I'm just giving you space to breathe. But if you want me to walk away, I will. I'll never force myself into your life. She stared at him, torn between pushing him away and holding on. Finally, she whispered, I don't know if I can believe you. Keanu nodded slowly. Then let me keep showing you. The choice ahead that night, Maria sat by Alex's bed, her thoughts tangled. Part of her wanted to run, to escape the whispers, the attention, the fear of being beholden to anyone. But another part, smaller, softer, remembered the warmth of breakfast, the sound of her son's laughter, the quiet steadiness in Keanu's eyes. Trust was terrifying, but maybe, just maybe, it was worth the risk. The storm at the door for a few days, things seemed calm. Maria began to smile more often, though her smiles were small and hesitant, like fragile flowers blooming in late winter. Alex grew brighter too. He played with other children, drew pictures with crayons Keanu had brought him, and once even laughed so loud that everyone in the shelter turned their heads. But calm never lasts long when shadows from the past still linger. One afternoon, while Keanu was away on set, a man appeared at the shelter's door. His clothes were ragged, his eyes sharp, and his voice carried the weight of anger. Where is Maria? He barked, startling a volunteer. The staff tried to calm him, but his shouting grew louder. When Maria heard the noise and stepped out into the hallway, her face drained of color. It was Alex's father. Broken ties, Maria, he sneered, his tone dripping with bitterness. So this is where you're hiding, living off charity while I'm out here struggling. Maria froze, her body trembling. Alex, hearing his father's voice, clung to her leg, his small hands shaking. You need to leave, Maria whispered, her voice barely steady. Leave, the man laughed cruelly. This is my family too. I have a right to be here. But Maria's voice rose, louder this time. No, you lost that right when you walked away, when you left us with nothing. The man's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare talk to me like that. You think you're better now. You think some stranger can save you? His words cut deep, aimed to reopen wounds that had barely begun to heal. Keanu's return, the confrontation might have spiraled further, but at that moment, Keanu returned. He had come earlier than planned, bringing groceries and books for Alex. When he stepped inside and saw the man towering over Maria and Alex, his calm face hardened. Is there a problem here? Keanu asked quietly, his voice steady but firm. The man turned, sneering. "Who are you, some hero trying to play daddy?" Keanu didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped closer, placing himself between Maria and the man. "I'm someone who won't let you hurt them." The shelter staff quickly called security, but the air was thick with tension. Alex clutched his mother tighter, whispering, "Mom, don't let him take me." Keanu crouched slightly, glancing at Alex with calm, steady eyes. "No one is taking you anywhere," he said softly. The breaking point, the man tried to push forward, but Keanu's presence was immovable, quiet yet unshakable. Before things could escalate, security arrived and escorted him out. Still, his words echoed in Maria's ears. "You think some stranger can save you?" Afterward, Maria sat on the edge of her bed, trembling. Keanu approached carefully, not wanting to crowd her. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "You shouldn't have stepped in. This isn't your fight." Keanu's voice was soft but resolute. "Any fight that threatens you and Alex is my fight now." Tears welled in her eyes. "You don't understand. He'll come back. He always comes back. He won't let us go." Keanu placed a hand on the back of the chair, grounding her with his calmness. "Then we'll make sure he can't hurt you again. You're not alone anymore." Walls of fear that night, Maria lay awake again, her mind replaying every word. Part of her wanted to believe Keanu, to let his promise wrap around her like a shield. But another part feared the man's return, feared that history would repeat itself. She thought about leaving the shelter, disappearing before the past could corner her again. But then she looked at Alex, sleeping peacefully for once. Leaving would mean tearing him away from the first place of safety he'd known in months. For the first time, Maria prayed silently for strength, not just to protect her son, but to trust someone else to stand beside her. Alex's courage the next morning, Alex surprised them both. He sat beside Keanu at breakfast, holding his small drawing of 3 stick figures, a boy, a woman, and a man. "This is us," he said proudly. "Me, Mom, and you." Maria's eyes widened. "Alex," the boy looked at her, his voice steady though his hands trembled. "I don't care if he comes back. I don't care what Dad says. I want to stay here. I want to stay with you. And I want him to stay with us too." He pointed at Keanu. Keanu's throat tightened, but he managed a soft smile. "That's very kind of you, Alex, but you know I'll only be here as long as you both want me to be." Maria's eyes filled with tears. She turned away quickly, hiding her face. A vow of protection later that day, Keanu met with the shelter director and a lawyer he trusted. They discussed legal protections, restraining orders, and ways to ensure Maria and Alex's safety. Keanu knew it wasn't just about providing food or a bed anymore. It was about shielding them from the past that still hunted them. When he returned to Maria, he didn't overwhelm her with details. He simply said, "I've taken steps. He won't be able to hurt you again, not if I can help it." Maria looked at him, her voice trembling. "Why do you care so much?" Keanu's answer was simple. "Because no one should live in fear. And because kindness only matters if it lasts." A new resolve that night, as Maria tucked Alex into bed, she sat beside him longer than usual. "Mom," Alex whispered, "are we going to be okay?" Maria held his hand tightly. "Yes," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. "We're going to be okay." For the first time, she almost believed it. The night everything shook, days passed more steadily after the confrontation. Maria still carried unease inside her, but Alex began to thrive. He played with children in the shelter courtyard, drew pictures with more colors, and even laughed without holding it back. Keanu visited often, never demanding space but always offering it. Sometimes he read stories with Alex, sometimes he just sat quietly with Maria over tea. Their bond was fragile, but it was growing. And then the night came when everything threatened to collapse again. The fire alarm, it was late, nearly midnight, when the shelter's fire alarm screamed through the halls. People rushed from their beds, panicked voices filling the air. Smoke drifted from the kitchen area, where an electrical spark had ignited old wiring. Maria grabbed Alex's hand tightly, her heart pounding. Memories of past nights of chaos, of fear, rushed back all at once. Alex coughed, clinging to her. "Stay with me," she whispered, guiding him through the crowded hall. But the smoke grew thicker. People pushed and stumbled, trying to get out. Alex's small hand slipped in the chaos, and suddenly Maria turned and he was gone. The moment of terror. "Alex!" she screamed, her voice cracking. Panic clawed at her chest. She shoved through the crowd, her eyes stinging from smoke. Then she saw him, trapped near the stairwell, frightened as flames licked the edges of the kitchen door. Maria froze. Fear locked her legs. She wanted to run, but her body remembered too many nights of helplessness. Her chest tightened, her breath shallow, and then Keanu appeared. He had been arriving just as the alarm sounded, and without hesitation he rushed inside. "Alex!" Keanu called, his voice cutting through the noise. The boy turned, his face streaked with tears. Keanu pushed forward, coughing as smoke burned his throat. He reached Alex, lifted him into his arms, and carried him out through the crowded hall. When Maria saw them emerge, she collapsed to her knees, sobbing in relief. Breaking down outside, firefighters worked quickly to contain the fire. The shelter was damaged, the residents shaken, but everyone was safe. Maria wrapped her arms around Alex, holding him so tightly he squirmed. Then she turned to Keanu, her eyes wide with tears. "You went in there," she whispered, her voice trembling. Keanu, still catching his breath, only nodded. "Of course I did," her lips trembled. "You could have died." "But I didn't," Keanu said softly. "He needed me, that's all that mattered." Maria broke then. The walls she had built for so long, the distrust, the fear, all of it cracked under the weight of gratitude and guilt. "Why?" she cried. "Why do you care so much? I'm not your family, I'm not your responsibility." Keanu stepped closer, his voice low but unshakable. "Because kindness doesn't ask for reasons, because Alex deserves safety. Because you deserve to feel human again." Maria buried her face in her hands, sobbing openly for the first time in years. The shelter's loss, the fire forced the shelter to close temporarily. Families were scattered to other locations, and Maria was left feeling as though the fragile ground beneath her had been torn away again. "We have to leave," she told Alex one morning. "We can't keep depending on this. It's falling apart. We'll only get hurt again." Alex's small voice was firm. "No, Mom, we have to stay. He'll help us." Maria looked at her son, stunned by his certainty. Keanu's offer a few days later, Keanu came to see them. His face was serious, his tone calm. "The shelter won't be ready for weeks," he said. "But I've arranged something, a small apartment, nothing fancy but safe, clean, and yours until you're ready for more." Maria's stomach clenched. The words felt heavy, dangerous. "An apartment?" she whispered. "Yes," Keanu said gently. "No cameras, no publicity, just a place where you and Alex can breathe." Her fear returned in full force. "If I accept this, then what? Then I'll owe you forever." Keanu shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. This isn't a debt. It's a bridge. One step toward the life you and Alex deserve." But Maria turned away, tears stinging her eyes. I don't know how to take this. I've lived too long waiting for everything to be ripped away. I can't risk Alex believing in something that might vanish tomorrow." Alex's choice later that night, Alex spoke to his mother with a seriousness beyond his years. "Mom, I don't care if it's scary. I don't care if we lose it later. I just want to feel normal. I just want to have a home again. Please, can we try?" Maria's heart broke. She saw the hope in his eyes, the same hope she had tried to protect him from, and she realized something. The real danger wasn't in losing a home. It was in never letting her son believe they could have one. The decision the next morning, Maria found Keanu waiting outside. Her hands trembled as she spoke. "If this is a trick," she whispered, "if this disappears, I won't survive it." Keanu met her eyes with quiet strength. "It won't disappear, not this time." Maria closed her eyes, drew in a shaky breath, and nodded. "Then we'll try." Alex grinned, hugging his mother tightly. For the first time, hope didn't just flicker in his eyes, it burned. The first door of the day, Keanu took Maria and Alex to the small apartment. Maria's hands shook as she held the key. It wasn't a grand place. It had peeling paint in the hallway, creaking floors, and the faint smell of old wood. But it had 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a door that locked. Alex ran from room to room, his laughter echoing against bare walls. He pressed his palms against the windows, staring out as if they were the gates to another world. "Mom," he whispered, eyes wide, "we have doors. We have doors that are ours." Maria's throat tightened. Tears blurred her vision. She touched the key again, the weight of it heavy in her palm. Keanu stood quietly by the doorway, not wanting to intrude on their moment. He knew this was not about him. It was about them reclaiming something they had lost. The fear of losing that night, Maria couldn't sleep. Though Alex was curled up in his own bed for the first time in months, peace didn't come easily. She sat in the dark kitchen, staring at the refrigerator, humming softly. The silence was too strange. When Keanu returned the next morning with groceries, he found her sitting at the table, eyes red. "You don't have to do this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You don't have to keep coming back. We'll find a way. We'll manage." Keanu set the groceries down gently. "I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because I choose to be, because you and Alex matter." Maria shook her head. "But what if one day you stop choosing? What if one day you leave too?" "I can't." Her voice broke, but Keanu stepped closer, his tone steady and quiet. "Maria, kindness doesn't vanish. not real kindness. It stays. And so do I. A step into light, the days slowly shaped themselves into something that felt like life again. Alex started school, his backpack bouncing on his small shoulders as he waved goodbye in the mornings. He came home with stories about classmates, about drawing and math, about being asked to play at recess. Maria found part-time work again, something steady and near the apartment. She was nervous at first, afraid to explain her gaps, her struggles. But she carried herself differently now, with a quiet strength. Sometimes she still doubted, still feared the world would take everything back. But then she'd see Alex smiling, or she'd see Keanu's quiet presence at their table, and she'd remember this was real. The test of dignity one afternoon, Maria said to Keanu, "You've done more than anyone ever has. But I need you to understand something. I don't want Alex to grow up thinking we survived because someone saved us. I want him to know we stood back up too." Keanu nodded softly. "Then let him see both. Let him see that his mother fought every day to protect him, and let him see that kindness is not weakness, it's strength. It's what holds people together when they can't stand alone." Maria's eyes filled with tears, but this time she didn't hide them. Alex's gift months passed. The apartment became filled with little signs of life. Alex's school projects taped to the wall, a second-hand couch Maria found, the smell of home-cooked meals. One evening, Alex sat at the table with paper and crayons. He drew carefully, his tongue sticking out as he worked. When he finished, he handed the picture to Keanu. It showed 3 figures standing under a roof. Above them, he had written in shaky letters, "Family." Keanu's hands trembled as he held the paper. "This is beautiful, Alex," he whispered. "It's us," Alex said proudly, "because family doesn't mean who leaves. It means who stays." Maria covered her mouth with her hand, sobbing softly. The quiet ending time moved forward, and though life was not perfect, it was steady. Maria learned to breathe again. Alex learned to dream again. And Keanu, he never sought recognition, never asked for thanks. He simply stayed, a steady presence, a quiet strength. The world would never know the full story. There would be no headlines, no cameras. Just a boy who found safety, a mother who found dignity, and a man who proved that kindness, when given without condition, can change everything. Closing beat, and so, what began as one night in a parking lot ended with something far greater. Not charity, not debt, but the rediscovery of hope.